Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Family Shadows channel. While I was lying in a hospital bed giving birth, my mother-in-law secretly stole the keys to my $2.5 million Manhattan penthouse so my husband's brother and his entire family could move in. Little did they know, the moment they opened that door, their world would come crashing down. People often say that the door to childbirth is the door to death. But for me, the biting cold of the delivery room was nothing compared to the chilling cruelty and betrayal of my own family. At the exact moment I was slipping in and out of consciousness, fighting to bring my child into the world, outside the delivery room, my mother-in-law and my husband were gleefully stealing the keychain to unlock the door of the $2.5 million home I had built with my own blood, sweat, and tears. They intended to move his younger brother's family in to take over, completely unaware that their every despicable move was being monitored by me, second by second, through hidden cameras. I lay on the stark white bed of a premier private hospital in New York City, my hands gripping the cold metal bed rails. The contraction pains hit me in waves. It felt as though 1,000 needles were being driven into my lower back, and then as if a ton of bricks were crushing my pelvis. Sweat poured down my face like a shower, making the stray hairs stick to my pale forehead. The heart monitor beeped rhythmically, but my head was buzzing with the nurse's loud instructions to breathe deeply. I tried to open my eyes and look toward the delivery room window where my husband, Vincent, and my mother-in-law, Martha, were standing. I hoped to find a worried gaze, a reassuring hand, or at least the comforting presence of family in this life-or-death moment. But no, through the glass window, the image that struck my eyes was one of cruel indifference. My mother-in-law, Martha, sat with her legs crossed on a waiting room chair. She wore a dark, cheap floral blouse, her hands gripping the large new iPhone that Vincent had bought for her just last month. She wasn't looking into the room where her daughter-in-law was writhing in agony. Her eyes were glued to the screen, her fingers swiping continuously as she muttered something to herself, looking thoroughly annoyed. I suppressed a groan of pain, my ears catching the voices echoing in when a nurse opened the door to step out. Martha's voice was booming, thick with a rural Ohio accent, and she didn't bother to lower it in a public place. Good Lord, it's just giving birth, but she's acting like royalty. What's the point of coming to an expensive hospital like this just to waste money? Back home at the county clinic, women pop out babies one after another, and they're just fine. Lying here for one day costs as much as a new tractor. Vincent, my husband, leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets, looking bored. He frowned slightly and said to his mother, "Mom, keep it down, people are polite here. If you keep yelling, they'll laugh at us. She has her own money. She can afford to give birth wherever she wants." Martha glared at him, her voice growing even more sour. Her money? Isn't her money also her husband's money? You're so spineless. No wonder she walks all over you. Women who throw money around like this. Let's see if she pops out a boy or a girl. If it's a girl, it's a total waste of medical bills. Another contraction hit, causing me to curl up, biting my lip until it bled. Tears spilled from my eyes, not just from physical agony, but from a profound, overwhelming sense of self-pity. I am Olivia, the CEO of a renowned architectural design firm in New York City. I became independent early on. The $2.5 million penthouse in Manhattan was a pre-wedding gift from my own parents. I had never asked my husband's family for a single dime. In fact, I had been the one financially supporting his entire family back in Ohio. Yet, in the very moment I was crossing the threshold of life and death, all I received from my mother-in-law was petty calculation and blatant contempt. The nurse looked back at me sympathetically and gently wiped the sweat from my forehead. She whispered, "Push through it, honey. You're 8 centimeters dilated. You'll meet your baby soon. Don't let the outside noise affect your state of mind. It's not good for the baby." I nodded, tears rolling down onto the pillow. I told myself I had to be strong. I was giving birth for myself, for this sacred maternal bond, not to please that calculating family of his. Outside, Martha still hadn't stopped complaining. She turned and tugged at Vincent's sleeve. "Listen, you need to figure out how to get her to give me the house keys. She's going to be bedridden in postpartum recovery for a month. The house will be empty with no one to watch it. Let me hold the keys so I can clean up for her. Hiring a maid is too expensive." Vincent scratched his head, stammering, "Come on, Mom, she's in labor right now. Why ask for the keys? Wait until after the baby is born. You're an idiot. What if she gets postpartum brain fog and loses them? That's a luxury penthouse, not some shack. Go tell the nurse to bring her designer handbag out here for me to hold. Martha's voice pierced my ears clearly amidst the relentless uterine contractions. A freezing sensation ran down my spine, overriding the pain of childbirth. She didn't care about her soon-to-be-born grandchild. Her mind was entirely fixated on the keys to my home. I gritted my teeth, my hands gripping the bedsheets. I knew their scheme wasn't simply to hold the keys, but at this moment, I couldn't do anything else but focus on delivering my child. I promised myself that no matter what happened, I would protect my assets and my child's future. A terrifying surge of pain hit, ripping through my core. I let out an agonizing scream and blacked out for a split second, surrendering my body to maternal instinct. After nearly 2 hours of grueling struggle, the sound of my baby's first cry finally echoed, shattering the tense atmosphere in the delivery room. I lay there, my entire body limp as if drained of every ounce of strength, my bleary eyes watching the doctor clean the red, squirming infant. A feeling of happiness crept into my heart, but the drowsiness from the epidural's side effects dragged me slowly into a hazy state. I was moved by the nurses onto a gurney to the recovery room. My eyes drooped, the surroundings blurred, flickering out of focus. However, my hearing remained active, even if the sounds were somewhat distorted and distant. "Where's the family of the patient, Olivia? Please take the patient's personal belongings so she can be moved to recovery," a nurse called out. Immediately, I felt a commotion next to the gurney. "Here, I'm her mother-in-law. Give that handbag to me." It was Martha's voice, quick as a flash. She snatched my designer Chanel bag from the nurse's hands. I wanted to open my mouth to say, "Don't give it to her," but my tongue was stiff, my eyelids too heavy to lift. In my stupor, I could still hear the rustling sound of rummaging right by my ear. Martha didn't care whether I lived or died. The very first thing she did was open my bag. "Vincent, stand here and block the camera for me. Hurry up." Martha's whispers were rushed and calculating. I peeked through a tiny slit in my eyelids. I saw Vincent's large frame standing in front of Martha, his back turned to the hospital hallway security camera. Martha kept her head down, thrusting her hand into my bag, pulling out my keychain. It was a smart key bundle, containing the RFID fob for the private elevator, the backup mechanical key for the main door, and the key to the master bedroom. She quickly detached that bundle and shoved it deep into the pocket of her cheap cardigan. Then, she pulled out a similar-looking set of keys from her own pocket and dropped it into my handbag. The switch took only a few seconds. A flawless act. If it were a normal person who had just barely survived childbirth, they would never have noticed. Vincent whispered, his voice trembling, "Mom, hurry up. If the nurses see, why do you need the keys in such a rush?" "Shut up." I gave the other set to Hunter. "By the time he gets to the Port Authority bus terminal later, he'll head straight to the apartment. You need these keys to open the door and move their stuff in. Stop standing there shaking. You're a grown man, but you're as cowardly as a mouse." Hunter, Vincent's younger brother. That name echoed in my head like an alarm bell. So, my prediction was right. They had planned this in advance, taking advantage of my hospitalization and inability to control the situation. They were bringing his brother's family from Ohio to New York to squat in my apartment. Martha zipped the bag shut, patted it, and put on a fake, pleasant smile as the nurse approached. "Oh, miss, has my daughter-in-law woken up yet? Poor thing. She must be so exhausted. I'll hold on to this bag for her. There are a lot of important documents in here." Her voice was sickeningly sweet, a stark contrast to her earlier shrillness. That hypocrisy made me shudder. I lay motionless, pretending to be in a deep, medication-induced sleep. I knew that if I sprang up and exposed them now, I would be at a disadvantage due to my unrecovered health. Furthermore, I needed more concrete evidence than the ramblings of a delirious postpartum woman. I squeezed my eyes shut, swallowing the knot of fury into my twisting stomach in the darkness of my stupor. I told myself, "Fine, Martha. Fine, Vincent. You think I'm some naive cash cow you can just milk dry? You are dead wrong." The gurney continued rolling, taking me into the quiet recovery ward. The footsteps of Martha and Vincent faded away. I drifted to sleep, but my hands remained clenched in fists subconsciously. The real war was only just beginning, and I, Olivia, would never be the loser in my own home. By the time I was moved to a luxury postpartum suite, it was late afternoon. The golden New York sun slanted through the blinds, casting long streaks of light across the polished hardwood floor. The room was quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning. The head doctor walked in, cradling a pink bundle in his arms. He smiled warmly and placed the baby into my arms. Congratulations to the family. A beautiful baby girl, weighing 7 pounds. She's incredibly healthy. I looked down at the little angel, sleeping soundly against my chest. Her face was rosy, her little lips adorably pursed. In that moment, all the pain and calculating malice out there seemed to vanish. I gently kissed her forehead, whispering, "Hello, my sweet girl. Mommy loves you more than anything in the world." But the joy was short-lived. The suite door swung open, and Martha and Vincent walked in. No flowers, no gifts, no radiant smiles. Martha glanced at the pink bundle in my arms, her face sagging like a torn sack. She clicked her tongue loudly. "So it's a girl? Huh? All that money and build-up just to pop out a daughter." Her words felt like a bucket of ice water thrown in my face. I pulled my baby closer, looking up at her, my voice hardening despite my weakness. "What kind of thing is that to say, Mom? A child is a child. What era are you living in to still favor boys over girls?" Martha pouted, dragged a chair over, and slumped into it, crossing her legs. "Oh, you think you're so smart and modern. But this family needs a male heir to carry on the bloodline. You raise a girl, it costs money and food, and then she marries and flies away. What good is that? The old saying is never wrong. One son is a true heir. 10 daughters are worth nothing." Vincent, standing nearby and sensing the tension, quickly chimed in. "Come on, Mom. A firstborn daughter brings wealth. Don't speak like that." Though his words technically defended me, the look in Vincent's eyes couldn't hide his disappointment. He merely gave the baby a passing glance before wandering off, his hands busy texting on his phone. I knew exactly who he was texting, undoubtedly reporting the situation to Hunter. "I'm telling you, don't talk back to me. If you can't give birth to a boy, you have to listen to criticism. Anyway, the baby is born, so focus on taking care of it. I'm old. I can't stay up all night holding a crying infant. If you have money, hire someone." Saying that, she stood up and walked out to the balcony for some fresh air, abandoning me with my newborn child. She didn't even bother to touch her own granddaughter once. That coldness was so cruel, it made my heart clench. I looked over at Vincent. He was still glued to his phone screen, fingers typing furiously. I deliberately asked, "Who are you texting that keeps you so busy?" "Your wife just gave birth. You aren't holding your child, you're just staring at your phone." Vincent jumped, hastily hiding the phone against his chest, stammering a denial. "Oh, no one. I'm just messaging the guys at the office with the good news. You just rest. I'm going out to buy a bottle of water." He lied without blinking, but he forgot that I thoroughly understood his cowardly, sneaking nature. I stayed silent, not calling him out, just nodding slightly. Vincent scurried out the door, looking rushed like a thief. Out on the balcony, Martha was whispering excitedly on her phone. It was just me and my baby in the large room. I looked down at my daughter, tears threatening to spill, but I held them back. "My sweet little girl, you weren't welcomed by your grandmother, and your father is indifferent. But don't worry, Mommy will be your whole world. I won't let anyone hurt you, and I will take back everything that belongs to us." This cold treatment was the greatest motivation for my plan. I would show them that the woman they looked down upon, the granddaughter they despised, held 1,000 times more value than their ignorant greed. The suite door closed behind Vincent. Martha was still rambling on the balcony, the wind drowning out most of her conversation. But I caught fragments of words like keys, bus, and tonight. I took a deep breath, trying to regulate my breathing to ease the uterine cramps. This was not the time to be weak or to cry. I needed absolute clarity. I gently placed my sleeping baby into the bassinet next to the bed. Ensuring she was sound asleep, I reached for the iPhone hidden under my pillow. This was a secondary phone I always kept on me, different from my main phone that was currently in the handbag Martha was holding. My fingers flew across the screen, accessing a hidden folder secured by fingerprint. The Safe Home app appeared with a blue house icon. My heart pounded as the data loaded. A grid of 6 camera feeds popped up, covering every angle of my penthouse: the living room, kitchen, hallway, and the front entryway. I had secretly installed this system 3 months ago, when I first began suspecting a change in Vincent. The micro cameras were cleverly disguised in smoke detectors, a wall clock, and decorative vases. No one in the house, including Vincent, knew they existed. The screen was currently still. The apartment was empty, spotless, and luxurious. The imported Italian leather sofa sat silently in the center of the living room. The crystal chandelier reflected the fading afternoon light. Everything was peaceful, but I knew the storm was about to hit. I switched to the GPS tracking tab. A red dot was moving rapidly on the map. The location displayed was my primary keychain. It wasn't in the hospital. It was moving quickly down the highway toward Manhattan. I gave a cynical half-smile. Martha hadn't kept the keys in her pocket, as she said. She had handed them off to someone the moment I was in the recovery room, and that someone was none other than Hunter. I turned the audio recording and cloud backup settings to their maximum levels. Every action and word spoken in my house from this moment on would be recorded as evidence for court. I was no longer the docile, enduring wife of the past. Vincent's betrayal and his mother's malicious ambition had killed the naive girl I used to be. Now, lying in a hospital bed with a fresh wound, I felt my mind sharper than ever. This clarity didn't come naturally. It was paid for with tears and agonizing disillusionment. It all traced back to the clues that led to my meticulous preparation today. Nothing was a coincidence. Everything had a cause. It all started on a Sunday afternoon 3 months ago. I was 6 months pregnant, my belly quite heavy. Vincent said he had to go entertain a client to sign a new contract, so I stayed home alone, tidying up the bookshelf in his home office. Vincent was a man with a respectable, scholarly appearance, who always played the role of a model husband. I used to trust him absolutely, even handing over a portion of our finances for him to manage. But that day, fate caught him in a careless mistake. While dusting an old iPad that Vincent had left lying around on the shelf for ages, I was curious to see if it still worked. It still had battery, and crucially, Vincent's iMessage and WhatsApp accounts were never logged out. As soon as it connected to the Wi-Fi, a flood of messages poured in. My eyes stopped at a pinned chat with the contact name Mom. Trembling, I opened it. What I saw sent a freezing chill down my spine. Martha, did you get Olivia to put your name on a property deed yet? You're the husband, the head of the household. It's humiliating to live in a house entirely in your wife's name. Vincent, I'm trying to find the right time to bring it up, Mom. She's stubborn, and her parents are rich and cautious. It's not going to be easy. Martha, you need to be firmer. Wait until after she gives birth. When she's weak, force her to sign. I figured it out. Her place is huge. You need to bring Hunter and his wife up to live with you. Hunter's business failed back home. He's drowning in debt. Living rent-free at his sister-in-law's will save them money. Plus, having a New York address makes it easier to find work. Vincent. Okay, I'll figure it out. I want to bring him up here too. Life in Ohio is too hard for them right now, but I'm afraid Olivia won't allow it. Martha, if she won't allow it, she'll have to deal with it. Just say I'm coming up to watch the baby, and then drag Hunter's whole family along. Once they're moved in, she can't exactly throw them out. At worst, threaten her with divorce. Women who just had babies are terrified of losing their husbands. She'll fall right in line. I dropped the iPad onto the carpet, my whole body shaking uncontrollably. My throat felt so choked with bitterness I couldn't speak. So, all along, Vincent's care and my mother-in-law's inquiries were just an act to target my wealth. They treated me as an ATM, a gold mine to support their entire extended family. The most painful part was that Vincent, the man who shared my bed, was colluding with his mother to scheme against his own wife. He didn't protect me. He actively facilitated his mother and brother's endless greed. I sat on the floor, tears streaming down my face. I wanted to call Vincent right then to scream at him, to expose his hypocritical face. But the rational mind of a woman who fought her way to the top of the corporate world stopped me. If I threw a fit now, they would deny everything. Vincent would delete the messages, and Martha would play the victim, claiming her daughter-in-law was framing her. I was pregnant. My health couldn't handle the stress. Moreover, my assets needed to be protected by the law, not by pointless screaming matches. I wiped my tears, stood up, and took photos of the entire chat history as evidence. From that day on, the love in me died, leaving only high-alert vigilance. I quietly contacted a security firm to install hidden cameras. I put GPS trackers in Vincent's car, on his keys, and in his wallet. I began gradually moving important assets and documents into a bank-safe deposit box, leaving only surface-level items at home. I played the role of the naive pregnant wife, still smiling and chatting with Vincent, still polite to my mother-in-law over the phone. But behind that smile, a sharp knife was being honed every single day. And today, lying in the hospital, witnessing their clumsy key swap charade, I knew the time had come. They thought they were the hunters, and I was the prey. But they didn't know that this trap was set by me, and I was the one holding the handle of the knife. I would play this game to the bitter end. I lay on my side in the hospital bed, a thin blanket draped over my stomach to hide the C-section incision that still throbbed with pain. Next to me, my daughter slept soundly. Her steady breathing was the only thing soothing my soul. By early afternoon, Vincent had gone home, claiming he needed to grab more personal items for me. But I knew perfectly well he was going back to welcome his brother's family. I reached for the phone hidden under my pillow and reopened the camera app. The screen lit up, displaying a live feed from my living room. What met my eyes sent all the hot blood rushing straight to my brain. My hands shook with rage. The heavy oak door of my apartment swung wide open. Hunter, Vincent's brother, was struggling to drag two massive, dirty duffel bags, the kind used for hauling tools or cheap laundry, dropping them with a heavy thud right in the middle of the gleaming hardwood floor I polished every day. Following him was his wife, Tiffany, and their three unruly kids. The oldest was 10, the youngest barely 3. As soon as they stepped inside, the three kids acted like monkeys let out of a cage. They screamed and charged straight for the dark brown Italian leather sofa I had custom ordered for over $15,000. They didn't take off their shoes. They wore their dirt-caked sneakers directly onto the soft leather, jumping up and down wildly. "Whoa, this is so bouncy. It's awesome," the oldest boy yelled, stomping his feet hard into the supple leather. I watched in agony as clusters of scratches began to appear on the premium surface. That was the sofa I had worked grueling hours for half a year just to reward myself. And now, it was being ruthlessly destroyed. Tiffany stood in the middle of the room, her eyes darting around like a thief casing a joint. Her mouth hung open as she admired the custom crown molding and the crystal chandelier. She smacked her lips and turned to her husband, her loud voice booming. "Holy crap, this place is as big as a gymnasium." And Vincent had the nerve to say it was too cramped for us. What a cheapskate. Rich but doesn't care about his own brother. Hunter pulled a bottle of expensive organic juice from my fridge and chugged it, laughing goofily. "Well, we're here now," Mom said it herself. "Just move in and take the biggest bedroom. The sister-in-law is in the hospital. She won't be back for a while. And even if she does, the deed is done. How can she kick us out?" Saying that, Hunter threw open the doors to my double-door smart fridge. He rummaged through the shelves, pulling out several cartons of imported organic milk and the expensive fruit I had bought to nourish myself post-pregnancy. He tossed a carton to each of his kids without bothering with glasses. "Drink up, kids. Uncle Vincent has plenty of money." Hunter's youngest child squeezed the carton too hard, causing milk to spray violently across the floor and splatter all over my pristine cream-colored Persian rug. Seeing this, Tiffany didn't scold the child or grab a towel to clean it up. Instead, she laughed obnoxiously. "Leave it. Tell Uncle Vincent to clean it up later. Let's just rest." That bus ride took the life out of me. She wandered over to the TV console, picked up my decorative Chanel No. 5 perfume, examined it, and sprayed a massive cloud of it all over herself. The overpowering scent seemed to radiate through the phone screen, making me feel suffocated. She casually spat the shells of the sunflower seeds she was eating straight onto the floor under the coffee table. My luxurious, immaculate penthouse had been turned into a chaotic, noisy, filthy war zone in less than 30 minutes. They treated it as their own, treating my belongings as unowned property they had the right to use and destroy at will. I watched Vincent appear in the frame. He walked out of the bedroom, saw the scene, but didn't show any annoyance or try to stop them. Instead, he gestured. "Make yourselves at home. The guest room is in the back, but Mom said you guys can use Olivia's home office for now. It's bigger. Let me just clear out some of her books." "Oh, please. Why bother clearing it out?" Hunter waved his hand dismissively, his tone dripping with contempt for intellectual work. "Just shove it all in a corner. Books don't do anything. It's not like you can eat them." I turned off the screen, too afraid I'd have a heart attack if I kept watching. My chest heaved, my breath coming in short gasps. I hated them, but I hated Vincent 10 times more. He was my husband. He was supposed to be the protector of our home. Instead, he was the one holding the door open for outsiders to trample on his wife's hard work. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to swallow this rage. I told myself to stay calm. I had recorded all these images, This would be irrefutable evidence of his family's lifestyle, character, and destruction before a judge later on. Let them have their fun, because the price they would pay would be astronomically high. Around 6 p.m., Martha returned to the hospital, carrying an old, beat-up Tupperware container. She walked into the room looking far more cheerful than she had that afternoon. Probably because the plan to move her son into the city had gone off without a hitch. She slammed the container onto the table with a thud and pulled her chair right up to my bed, her voice adopting a sugary sweetness that gave me goosebumps. "Wake up and eat a little to get your strength back. I made this heavy casserole since noon. Cooked it real good. Eat up so you produce lots of milk for the baby. My poor granddaughter must be starving." I forced myself to sit up, leaning against the headboard. Even though I didn't want to eat, I needed to keep my strength up for the fight, and I also wanted to see what she was going to try next. Martha scooped the food into a bowl. It was a heavy, greasy, sodium-packed mess that made me nauseous just looking at it. But she kept exclaiming how delicious it was, trying to force me to eat every last bite. While I struggled to swallow a spoonful of the bland muck, Martha began beating around the bush. "Listen here, honey. Our family is small, and you just gave birth. Vincent is working himself to the bone. I was thinking, we should let Hunter and his wife stay at the apartment for a while to help you two out. Tiffany might be a bit clumsy, but she's honest. She can help you with the laundry and cooking." I set the bowl down, wiped my mouth, and gently replied, "Mom, I'm used to hiring professional housekeepers. They're very efficient. Besides, Hunter and Tiffany have their lives and work back in Ohio, and the kids have school. It wouldn't be convenient for them to drop everything and move here." Martha waved her hand, her face losing a bit of its color, but she maintained her forced smile. "Oh, please. What kind of money can you make back in the sticks? Coming to the city to find work is much better. Changing schools for the kids is easy, and anyway, they've already moved in. They brought all their stuff. You wouldn't kick your own brother-in-law out, would you? People would talk, they'd laugh at us." I chuckled internally. She was trying to force a done deal on me. If I were the Olivia of the past, I probably would have reluctantly nodded to keep the peace. But the Olivia of today was different. "Is that so? It's fine if they visit for a few days, but long-term would be too inconvenient. But let's talk about it when I get home." Seeing that I didn't react aggressively, Martha thought I was relenting. She glanced toward the door to make sure no one was there, then lowered her voice, her eyes glinting with greed. "Yeah, we'll talk about it at home. But hey, there's something more important. Vincent told me the other day that New York State is changing some property tax laws or something. He said you have to bring the property deed in to redeclare it or do some paperwork. I'm not sure. But I heard if you don't do it fast, you'll get a massive fine, maybe even have the property seized." She paused, observing my reaction, then continued. "Give me the deed to the apartment so Vincent can take it and get the paperwork done. You're bedridden, recovering from childbirth, you can't be walking around. Let the man of the house handle the legal documents." I almost burst out laughing at her fabricated, childish, and blatantly transparent lie. Surely Vincent, and she had rehearsed this script thoroughly, preying on a woman's supposed fear of legal trouble. But they forgot I was a businesswoman. I understood the law far better than they did. There was no such thing as a tax law change that required handing over a physical deed for a husband to secretly file. Their ultimate goal was simply to trick me out of the deed so Vincent could secretly transfer ownership or use it as collateral for a loan to pay off Hunter's debts. I faked a wince of pain, clutching my stomach. "Ouch. It hurts." Martha jumped. "What's wrong? Where does it hurt?" "My incision. It hurts so much. The painkillers must have worn off." "Mom, let's hold off on the paperwork. The deed is locked securely in my Chase Bank safe deposit box. My parents have the key. Right now, I'm in so much pain, my head is spinning, I can't think straight." Hearing bank safe, deposit box, and my parents, Martha's face darkened instantly. Her plan to steal the deed right here in the hospital had failed. "What? You gave it to your parents? Why are you so stupid? Why would you let outsiders hold on to our family's assets? They are my parents. How are they outsiders, Mom?" I shot back, my voice still weak, but my gaze locked straight onto hers. Martha clicked her tongue, her face masking no resentment. "Fine. If you're in pain, just rest." Making such a big deal out of a piece of paper, having to lock it away. She stood up and roughly cleared the dishes, making a loud clatter. I lay back down, turning my face toward the wall, a slight smirk playing on my lips. "You want to take my assets? In your dreams? I wouldn't let a single penny fall into the hands of these greedy, ungrateful people. Night fell, and the hospital grew silent. Martha had gone back to my apartment to reunite with her favorite son's family, leaving me utterly alone in the hospital room. Vincent hadn't bothered to visit either. He texted saying he was busy taking his nieces and nephews out for fast food. I wasn't sad. On the contrary, I felt relieved not to have to look at those hypocritical faces. This was the golden window of time I needed to prepare for my decisive counterattack. I picked up my phone, opened my contacts, and called Tyler, the director of the security firm that installed my system. We had a fairly close business relationship. "Hey Tyler, it's Olivia. Sorry to call so late." "No problem, Olivia. Did you deliver? Congratulations. Is there an emergency?" Tyler's voice was warm and professional. "I did, thank you. Both mom and baby are healthy. I need a massive favor right now. I need you to remotely reset the entire biometric lock system on my apartment." "Reset? Is there a technical glitch?" "No. It's a personnel issue. I want you to wipe my husband's fingerprints and all previous access codes. Set it to maximum security. Generate a one-time OTP for me and text it over. Make it valid for 48 hours only. Also, activate the intrusion alarm. If anyone tries to force the mechanical lock, have the system automatically alert the NYPD and my phone." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Tyler likely understood the situation. He didn't ask further questions, just replied firmly. "Understood. I'll do it right now on the server end. What do you want the new master code to be? But right now, there are people inside the apartment, correct? If I reset it, they'll still be inside, but once they leave, they won't be able to get back in using the old access methods." "Exactly. I want it that way. Let them stay inside, but absolute control must belong to me." "Got it? Give me 5 minutes. Take care of yourself, Olivia." Hanging up, I let out a sigh of relief. Step 1 was complete. Right now, that apartment was being occupied by them, but the virtual keys were in my hands. Next, I FaceTimed Hannah, my childhood best friend and my absolute most trusted confidant. Hannah's face appeared on screen. She was wearing a face mask. "How's my favorite new mom doing? How goes the war? Change of plans. I'm discharging early. Get in touch with attorney Nathan for me. Tell him to have the divorce papers and the trespassing, eviction notices ready. I need everything finalized by tomorrow afternoon." Hannah peeled her face, mask off, her expression turning dead serious. "Are you absolutely sure? If you go nuclear like this, there's no turning back. Will Vincent even sign?" "I have enough evidence to make him beg on his knees to sign it. Don't worry about it. I'll send you the new door code. On the day I come home, I need you to get there early, use the code, and let yourself and Nathan in. Don't let anyone know." "Okay, I get it. I promise I'll play the role of the ultimate rescuer perfectly. You just rest and save your strength for the fight. I love you and the baby so much." I hung up, looking over at my sleeping daughter. This war wasn't just about money. It was about honor and the future of my child. I would not let my daughter grow up in an environment of deceit, where her father and grandmother worshipped money and trampled on family bonds. I would cut this malignant tumor out of my life, no matter how much it hurt. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. My first habit wasn't to go to the bathroom, but to check the camera app. I had slept fitfully, having nightmares about being thrown out of my own home. The screen showed the master bedroom, my and Vincent's most private sanctuary. It was 9 a.m., and the sun was streaming through the curtains. The bedroom door flew open. Tiffany walked in, wrapped in my bath towel. She had just showered in my private en-suite bathroom, and was casually drying her hair with the specialized towel I used exclusively for my face. I shuddered in disgust. Tiffany stood in front of my vanity, picking up my expensive Tom Ford and YSL lipsticks and smearing them on her lips. She smacked her lips, turning side to side, admiring herself in the mirror, and clicked her tongue. Expensive stuff really is different. It glides on so smooth, not like the cheap drugstore crap I buy that feels like chalk. Then, she moved toward my walk-in closet. I held my breath. She yanked the doors open, her eyes lighting up when she saw my collection of designer dresses. Oh my God, so many beautiful dresses, and Olivia doesn't even wear them. What a waste. These must be worth thousands. Tiffany pulled out a turquoise, jewel-encrusted evening gown that I had custom-tailored for a corporate gala. She held it against herself, then dropped my towel to the floor. She squeezed her flabby, untoned body into the dress. The sound of the fabric stretching sounded like tearing cloth in my mind. She struggled to pull the zipper up her back, sucking in her stomach and holding her breath until it barely made it halfway. That wasn't all. She opened my accessory drawer and pulled out a white gold and diamond necklace, a birthday gift from my father last year. She clasped it around her neck, striking poses, twisting her body, snapping endless selfies with her phone, muttering, "Gotta post this on Facebook to make the girls back home jealous. I'm a queen in New York City now." Hunter walked in, saw his wife posing, and burst into obnoxious laughter. "Damn, looking pretty hot there. But take it off quick. If Olivia comes home and sees, it'll be a huge mess." Tiffany pouted, still busy taking photos. "You worry too much. She's stuck in the hospital for another week, and even if she comes back, I'll just say I borrowed it to try it on. Family shouldn't be stingy about a dress. Once this house is ours, everything in it will be ours anyway." "Yeah, I know, but Mom said we have to take it slow. Don't make it too obvious." Vincent is still trying to sweet-talk Olivia into handing over the deed. Sweet-talk my foot. Vincent is a pushover. If it were up to me, I'd threaten her and she'd fall in line. Why does a woman need to hold on to so much property anyway? You can't take it to the grave. Listening to the shameless, utterly depraved greed of Hunter and his wife, I no longer felt angry. I just felt pure, unadulterated contempt. They looked down on me so much they thought I was a clueless idiot. They didn't know that every filthy action and word was being recorded. Tiffany had crossed my ultimate red line, invading my privacy and touching my parents' mementos. I saved that video clip into a dedicated folder named Evidence. I would show Tiffany exactly what borrowing meant and what the price of her delusions would be. That dress, that necklace, I would consider them a charitable donation to her in exchange for my life's freedom. That noon, I decided to execute the next step, rattle the enemy. I dialed Vincent's number. I knew his entire family was gathered for lunch in my apartment, likely having a great time enjoying their spoils. The phone rang for a long time before Vincent picked up. The loud noises of eating and kids screaming echoed clearly, then suddenly stopped dead. Vincent had probably run out to the balcony or closed the door. "Hey, honey, did you eat yet? I was planning to come see you this afternoon." Vincent tried to sound normal, but I could hear the nervous breathlessness in his voice. "I ate. Where are you? Why is it so loud?" "Oh, I'm at the office. The guys invited me out for lunch. The restaurant is packed, so it's a bit noisy." Lying without skipping a beat. I knew perfectly well he was sitting at my dining table. "Oh, really? I called to tell you the doctor just examined me. He said my incision is healing perfectly, my vitals are stable. So he's discharging me early. I'll probably come home tomorrow morning." There was stunned silence on the other end for a few seconds, followed by Vincent's panicked voice. "Why? Why are you coming home so early? You just had surgery a couple of days ago. Stay a few more days until you're fully recovered. It's not convenient for you to come home right now." "Why isn't it convenient? It's our home, not a hotel. I'm sick of the hospital, I miss home, and I want the baby to be comfortable. Plus, it's expensive, Vincent. Thousands of dollars a day. It hurts my wallet. But I haven't finished cleaning the house. It's dusty. I don't want it to affect the baby. It's fine, I'll hire a cleaning crew when I get back. Just get ready. Come pick us up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Actually, never mind. If you're busy at work, I'll just take an Uber. No need to bother you." "No," Vincent practically yelled. "I'll pick you up. Just stay put, let me rearrange my schedule, and I'll call you back." Vincent hung up abruptly. I could vividly picture the chaotic scene on the other end. He would definitely sprint out to break the bad news to Martha and Hunter's family. I opened the camera feed. Just as expected, the joyful lunch had turned into pure panic. Vincent ran into the dining room, pale as a ghost. "Mom, we're screwed. Olivia wants to come home tomorrow." Martha, who was gnawing on a chicken wing, nearly choked. She dropped her fork, her eyes bulging. "What? They said she'd be there a week. Why is she coming back so early?" The doctor cleared her. "She said it costs too much money, so she's coming home." "What do we do now? The house is a mess. Hunter's stuff is everywhere. If she sees this, the gig is up." Tiffany jumped up from her meal. "Oh my God, I haven't even done the laundry. Where do we hide all these clothes?" Hunter was scratching his head frantically. "This sister-in-law is a piece of work, coming home out of nowhere. What do we do, Mom? Should you tell Vincent to forbid her from coming back?" "How can he forbid her? It's her house. She has the right to come back whenever she wants," Martha snapped. Then she stood up to take charge. All right, here's what we do. Hunter, Tiffany, grab all your clothes and personal stuff and shove it into the storage closet immediately. Whatever doesn't fit, take it down to a cheap motel nearby for a day or two. What about the kids? Vincent asked. Tell her they're relatives visiting from Ohio to see the new baby. She can't do anything about guests visiting for a few days. The important thing is to hide all the junk so she doesn't know we moved in permanently. Clean the place up. Mop up those stains on the floor. Hurry up, run. The entire family scrambled like bees from a kicked hive. Tiffany scooped up the pile of clothes from the sofa, while Hunter dragged the massive duffel bags across the floor. Martha scrubbed the table while swearing under her breath. I watched their clumsy theatrical performance through my phone and smiled bitterly. Did they really think hiding a few duffel bags could cover up their plot to steal my home? They had no idea that tomorrow, when I returned, it wouldn't be for a peaceful coexistence, but to throw every single one of these illegal squatters out of my life. Once and for all, tomorrow was going to be a long day. I hugged my daughter tight, whispering, "Sleep tight, my love. Tomorrow, we go home. Our home." The Uber pulled up in front of the luxury Manhattan high-rise. Vincent sprinted out to open the door, lugging the diaper bags and baby gear, smiling and acting overly enthusiastic, but his eyes were shifty, refusing to meet mine. He didn't drive our family SUV today, claiming it was in the shop for maintenance, but I knew full well Hunter had been driving it all morning to take his wife and kids sightseeing, having hastily returned it to the parking garage just minutes ago. I stepped out of the car holding my baby, feeling the intense glare of the New York sun, yet my heart felt incredibly cold. Entering the elevator, I glanced at the control panel. My elevator RFID fob was firmly in Vincent's hand. He swiped it with practiced ease, something he rarely did before since he was always working late or on business trips. The apartment doors opened. A blast of cold AC air hit my face, accompanied by a nauseating, chaotic smell. It was cheap, overpowering perfume desperately sprayed to mask the smell of grease, food, and the stale odor of unwashed socks. Even though they had tried to clean, my heightened postpartum senses immediately detected the abnormalities. "Oh, Olivia, you're back. My, you surprised us all, coming back so suddenly." Tiffany jogged out of the kitchen, quickly wiping her hands on an apron covered in mysterious stains. She gave a bright, but incredibly stiff and forced smile. She wasn't wearing my necklace anymore, but I noticed the distinct indent of my gold bracelet on her wrist. She must have yanked it off just moments before I walked in. Hunter, sitting on the sofa, also hurriedly stood up. "Hi, Olivia, you and the baby made it. The family back home heard you had a safe delivery, so we came up to visit and brought some hometown food for you to recover." I scanned the living room. The floor was mopped, but the long, deep scratches in the hardwood from dragging heavy luggage were glaringly obvious under the lights. The Italian leather sofa had been smoothed over, but crumbs were still wedged in the corners. My carefully manicured indoor plants were drooping, the soil dug up likely by the wild kids. I didn't answer Hunter. I just gave a curt nod and turned to Vincent. "Take the baby into the bedroom for me. I'm exhausted." Vincent hastily took the baby and rushed into the bedroom. I followed slowly, intentionally lingering near Tiffany. She stepped aside, her eyes guiltily eyeing the dress I was wearing. I paused, sniffed the air, and said casually, "Did we switch air fresheners? It smells strange in here." "Tiffany, that smell isn't good for a newborn." Tiffany jumped, stammering. "Oh, yeah, it felt a bit stuffy, so I sprayed some perfume. Let me open the windows to air it out." I walked into the master bedroom. At first glance, it looked neat, but the placement of my cosmetics on the vanity was all wrong. My Tom Ford perfume was half empty. The bedsheets had been changed, but my favorite throw pillow had a strange, yellowish stain on it. I sat on the edge of the bed, a wave of bitterness and disgust washing over me. This was my and Vincent's private sanctuary, the place I had built our life. Now, it had been defiled by strangers. They hadn't just invaded my home. They had trampled on my dignity. Martha walked out of the ensuite bathroom, her hands still wet. Her voice boomed. "You're back? I just scrubbed the bathroom spotless for you. You get used to living like a queen in that hospital. You come home, and everything looks dirty, huh? Just rest." I told Tiffany to make a massive feast to celebrate you coming home. I looked at her fake, concerned face and shuddered. Scrub the bathroom? Or was she desperately trying to scrub away the filthy evidence her son's family had left behind? "Thank you, Mom, but I'm tired. I'll just have some light soup." You all go ahead and eat. I lay down, pulled the blanket up, and turned my back to the door. I needed to close my eyes and center myself to suppress the rage boiling in my chest. I had seen through their clumsy theatricals long ago, but I wouldn't expose them right this second. I needed them to drop their guard, to fully reveal their greedy nature before I delivered the final blow. The bedroom door clicked shut. In the living room, the loud, boisterous talking and the clinking of dishes resumed. They thought I was asleep and exhausted, so they reverted to their true forms, invaders celebrating a delusional victory. Dinner that night was suffocating. Even though I said I wanted to eat in my room, Martha insisted Vincent drag me to the dining table, claiming family meals build bonds. I reluctantly sat at the head of the table, the seat of the homeowner. But right now, I felt like a stranger. The table was piled high with heavy, greasy food, fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, thick gravy, and a heavy casserole. The three kids sat haphazardly on the chairs, grabbing food with their bare hands, chewing loudly, their faces smeared with grease. The oldest boy gnawed on a drumstick, wiped his hands on his shirt, and then grabbed a bottle of soda, spilling it all over the table. Tiffany, while eating, dropped a massive, fatty piece of fried chicken onto my plate, laughing. "Eat up, Olivia. This is real farm chicken we brought from Ohio, not that city stuff. Eat a lot so you make milk." I looked at the mountain of food and the greasy chicken and felt sick. I pushed the plate away, speaking quietly. "Thanks, but I just gave birth. The doctor told me to avoid heavy, greasy food. I'll just have this side salad." Martha, who was shoveling food into her mouth, slammed her fork down. She swallowed hard and started her usual tirade. "Oh, please. You restrict your diet to stay skinny, and you'll dry up like a raisin. Where's the nutrition for the baby? When I had Vincent, I ate whole pots of stew and I was fine. You modern girls make up all this science nonsense." Vincent sat next to me, staring at his plate in silence. He occasionally glanced at me nervously, but didn't dare say a word in my defense. The tension in the room thickened. Then Martha cleared her throat, her tone shifting to something more serious. "Since we're all here, I have something to say. Here's the deal. Hunter and his wife are struggling back in Ohio. The farm isn't doing well, and they're in a lot of debt. I look at this huge apartment here, all these empty rooms. It's a waste." She paused, checking my reaction. I kept calmly eating my salad as if I hadn't heard a thing. She pressed on. "I've decided to let Hunter, his wife, and the kids stay here for a while. It'll help them get back on their feet in the city, and the kids can get a better education. Hunter is strong. He can do the heavy lifting around the house. Tiffany can cook and do your laundry. It's a win-win." Hunter, sitting across from me, played along, putting on a pathetic voice. "Yeah, Olivia, it sucks back home. I'm thinking of driving Uber up here, taking odd jobs. We're very neat, we won't bother you guys. Please, for the kids' sake, let us stay. We'll even sleep in the storage closet." The words sounded like begging, but their attitude was the complete opposite. Hunter was shaking his leg casually, his eyes glued to the plate of chicken. Tiffany was casually picking her teeth, looking as though their staying here was a foregone conclusion. Vincent finally spoke up. His voice was low, but carried a manipulative weight. "What do you think, honey? The house is big. Let them stay. It'll be nice having family around. Plus, it's what Mom wants, and as children, we should respect her wishes." I put my fork down and looked up, making eye contact with every single one of them. My gaze landed on Vincent, my weak, despicable husband. He was using family duty to pressure me, using emotional blackmail to force me into accepting this absurdity. I took a deep breath and enunciated every word clearly. This isn't just about adding an extra plate to the table. This is a co-op building with strict occupancy limits. Furthermore, I just gave birth. I need a quiet environment to recover and work later. It's fine if they visit for a few days, but staying long-term is out of the question. Martha's face turned bright red. She slammed her hand on the table and yelled, "What do you mean? Out of the question. Your husband's house is my house, and it's his brother's house. You are a daughter-in-law in this family. Are you planning to throw your husband's family out onto the street? You are so selfish and petty. I never thought you'd be this cold-blooded." "Calm down, Mom," I said, maintaining an icy composure. "I am speaking reasonably. If Hunter wants to start a business, we can loan him some capital. But living together? I do not agree to it." "You, how dare you?" Martha choked on her rage. pointing her finger right in my face. The dinner devolved into a screaming match. The three kids, seeing the adults yelling, started bawling out of fear. Tiffany began wailing alongside her mother-in-law, playing the victim. Vincent tore at his hair, glaring at me with reproachful eyes, as if I were a criminal destroying the family. I stood up, leaving all the noise behind me. I'm going to my room to rest. You all can keep discussing it, but my stance is final. I walked into my bedroom and locked the door. My heart was racing, not from fear, but because my fury had reached its absolute peak. They had officially laid their cards on the table, backing me into a corner. Fine, if we're throwing away all pleasantries, don't blame me for being ruthless. I picked up my phone and texted Hannah. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Execute the plan. The next morning, the air in the apartment was as heavy as lead. Martha, Hunter, and Tiffany refused to speak to me. They stomped around with furious expressions, intentionally slamming doors and making loud noises to intimidate me. Vincent was avoiding the conflict. He said he had to go to work early, but I knew he was just hiding out at a coffee shop to avoid the war between his mother and his wife. Exactly at 9 a.m., I was sitting in the living room, holding my baby. I had changed into a sharp, professional outfit, my hair tied back neatly, wearing light makeup to hide my exhaustion. Sitting opposite me were Martha, Hunter, and Tiffany, watching TV. The volume was turned all the way up as an act of defiance. I glanced at the wall clock. It was time. I picked up my phone and pressed a speed dial button to Hannah. A moment later, the doorbell rang aggressively, shattering the fake, noisy atmosphere in the room. Who is it? Hunter. Go see who's at the door, Martha ordered. Hunter begrudgingly got up, muttering, probably a delivery or the building super. He pulled the door open. Standing there wasn't a delivery man. It was two NYPD officers in full uniform. Accompanying them was the building superintendent and a man in a sharp black suit. That was Nathan, my attorney. And of course, Hannah. Hunter froze, the color draining from his face. Can I help you? One of the officers spoke in a stern voice. Good morning. We received a report of a disturbance at this residence and the presence of unauthorized, illegal occupants not listed on the lease or deed. We are here to conduct an administrative check. At this point, Martha and Tiffany ran to the door. Seeing the cops, Martha panicked slightly but maintained her usual belligerence. What is this about, officers? I'm the homeowner's mother. My kids and grandkids are here visiting. We haven't done anything illegal. Why are you inspecting us? The neighbors are going to talk. The officer remained resolute and stepped inside. Ma'am, we are acting in accordance with the law. I need everyone to produce ID and proof of legal residency for this apartment. If you cannot prove your right to reside here, I will have to ask you to vacate the premises immediately. Martha glared at me, expecting me to step in and fix it. She fully believed that I would, out of respect for the family, cover for them like I always did. Since Vincent wasn't home, she thought she was the highest authority here. Attorney Nathan stepped forward, adjusting his tie. His voice was calm, but possessed an ironclad authority. Officers, I am the legal representative for Miss Olivia, the sole legal owner of this property. My client has filed a report regarding a group of individuals who have illegally trespassed and occupied her home, causing a disturbance and threatening the safety of her and her newborn child. Nathan's words dropped like a bomb in the middle of the living room. Martha's jaw dropped, her eyes wide as she stared at me. Tiffany and Hunter were shaking like leaves, their faces pale as ghosts. Martha screamed, lunging toward me. What? You called the cops to arrest your mother-in-law? Olivia, are you insane? I am Vincent's mother. I am your child's grandmother. I remained seated calmly on the sofa, gently patting my sleeping daughter. I looked up, meeting Martha's eyes directly. My gaze was sharper and more unyielding than it had ever been. Mom, the law doesn't distinguish between family and strangers. This is my house. If I haven't given you permission to stay, you are an illegal trespasser. I made myself very clear last night, but you all chose to ignore it. Order, please, the officer commanded. Ma'am, please calm down. I'm asking you and this family to produce your documents. If not, I am ordering you to leave this apartment immediately, or you will be escorted out. The tension in the room was pulled tight as a violin string. Martha was speechless, unable to argue. She scrambled to find her phone to call Vincent for help, but her hands were shaking so badly she dropped it, shattering the screen on the hardwood floor. Her usual aggressive, domineering demeanor had vanished, replaced by terror and humiliation in the face of the law. In the middle of the massive living room, Hunter's 3 kids started bawling, terrified of the strangers in uniform. Tiffany slumped onto the floor, hugging her kids, too pale to utter a single word. Hunter stood pinned against the wall, sweating profusely, his eyes darting toward the door as if looking for an escape route. The officer turned to me. "Miss Olivia, could you please produce the deed to the property so we can verify?" I gently placed the baby into her bassinet, stood up, and walked over to the wall safe, cleverly hidden behind a landscape painting. I spun the dial, opened the safe, and pulled out the property deed. This was the moment I had waited so long for. The moment I asserted absolute sovereignty over my life. I handed the document to the officer. He inspected it carefully and nodded. "Confirmed. This property belongs solely to Miss Olivia. Mr. Vincent's name is not on the deed, nor is anyone else's." Hearing this, Martha flailed like a fish out of water. "That's impossible. She married my son. Marital assets are shared. Vincent put money into buying things for this house. How can it be solely hers? Check it again. She's committing fraud." Attorney Nathan opened his briefcase and pulled out another document, his voice cutting through the air. "Ma'am, this is a prenuptial agreement, notarized before the marriage. Miss Olivia's parents gifted this property exclusively to their daughter. Mr. Vincent signed a waiver acknowledging this is her separate property and confirming he has no financial claim to this residence. Legally, neither you nor your son have any rights here without Miss Olivia's consent." Martha froze, her face shifting from red to purple. She never expected that my family and I had prepared so meticulously from the very beginning. She turned to me, her voice shifting from aggressive to a begging whine. "Olivia, doing this is killing me. I'm an old woman. Your brother and sister traveled all the way from Ohio. Do you have the heart to throw an old woman and children out onto the street? Where is your sense of family? Your marital duty?" I looked at her, my heart entirely unmoved. "Family. Where was the family when you swapped my keys while I was screaming in labor? Where was the family when you tried to extort the deed from me? Where was the family when you turned my home into a dump?" I announced loudly, in front of the police and everyone else. "Officers, I want to reiterate that I do not permit Hunter, Tiffany, their children, or Martha to reside here. Their actions have severely violated my privacy and the health of my child and myself. I demand they be removed immediately." My words were an ironclad sentence. Martha collapsed into a chair, wailing loudly. "Oh, Lord above. A daughter-in-law throwing her mother-in-law out onto the street. Why is my life so miserable? Vincent, where are you? Come see how your wife is treating your mother." The officer sternly reprimanded her. "Ma'am, please keep your voice down. This is a lawful order from the homeowner. I am asking you and your family to pack your bags and leave right now. If you resist, we will be forced to physically remove you." Hunter, seeing the situation was unsalvageable, hastily grabbed his wife's arm. "Come on, let's pack. She's dead to us anyway. There's no point in staying. Hurry up before they put us in handcuffs." Crying, Tiffany scrambled to shove their clothes into black garbage bags. She even tried to deliberately steal my Dyson hairdryer by slipping it into a bag. I saw it, but didn't say a word. Consider it charity. I stood with my arms crossed, watching them clumsily pack in utter humiliation. My unwavering resolve today was the answer to all the suppressed rage I had endured. I am the master of my own life, and no one has the right to trample on it. 30 minutes later, Hunter's family had gathered their junk. The massive, dirty duffel bags and oversized black garbage bags were piled up in the hallway of the luxury high-rise, looking pathetic and trashy, a stark contrast to their arrogant swagger when they first walked in. Neighbors, hearing the commotion, had begun opening their doors to peek out. Curious, whispering stares were directed at Martha's family. In a luxury Manhattan co-op, reputation and face are everything. And today, my husband's family had lost all of it. Martha carried her cheap plastic tote, her face staring at the ground, too ashamed to look at anyone. As she walked, she muttered curses under her breath. "Ungrateful bitch. You'll get what's coming to you. Karma will get you." But her curses only made her look more pathetic and miserable in the eyes of the onlookers. Tiffany carried a bag in one hand while dragging her youngest child, who was screaming from being woken up, with the other. Hunter slung a massive bag over his shoulder, stumbling awkwardly into the elevator under the strict supervision of the NYPD officers. I stood at the door, watching their figures disappear as the elevator doors closed. Hannah stood next to me, patting my shoulder. "You did great, Olivia. You have to be ruthless to survive." Attorney Nathan nodded in agreement. "You handled it decisively. That takes care of the trespassing issue. You should rest now. I'll get the paperwork ready for Vincent." As the apartment door clicked shut, returning the house to its original peace, I finally felt my legs shake. I collapsed onto the sofa, letting out a long exhale. A sense of relief permeated every cell in my body, but it was mixed with a bitter sting. So, this family was truly shattered. But I didn't regret it. This destruction was necessary to rebuild a better life for me and my daughter. Right at that moment, the electronic lock beeped and Vincent sprinted in, out of breath. He must have just received a frantic call from his mother. Seeing the apartment empty of his family, and his wife sitting calmly drinking tea with her best friend and a lawyer, all the blood drained from his face. "Olivia, what the hell did you do? Where's my mom? Where is my brother?" Vincent screamed, his voice cracking with panic. I set my teacup down, looking up at the man I had once loved with all my heart. Now, in my eyes, he was nothing but a cowardly, calculating, pathetic excuse for a man. They went exactly where they belong. "And now, it's your turn. We need to have a clear conversation." I jutted my chin toward the folder Attorney Nathan had placed on the glass coffee table. It contained a unilateral divorce petition and a stack of photographic evidence of Vincent's infidelity. Vincent looked at the folder, then at me. He took a step back, his back hitting the door. He realized the real storm was just about to make landfall on him. And this time, neither his mother nor his brother could save him. Outside, it started to pour. The torrential summer rain washed away the city's grime, just as I had washed the filth out of my home. The war wasn't over, but I knew I had already won. Vincent leaned against the heavy oak door, looking like a man who had lost his soul. The apartment was eerily quiet, save for the sound of rain drumming against the balcony windows and the soft hum of the air conditioning. Hannah and Nathan sat flanking me like two guardians, creating an impenetrable fortress that Vincent didn't dare approach. I picked up the iPad from the table, unlocked the screen, and slammed it down hard onto the glass coffee table in front of him. The sharp clatter made him flinch. "Pick it up. Look at it. Look very closely." Vincent hesitated, then stepped forward and picked up the tablet. His fingers trembled as he swiped through the photos and videos. It wasn't just intimate pictures of him with his mistress, Lauren, during his supposed business trips. More importantly, it was bank statements and accounting ledgers. Vincent's eyes widened to the size of saucers. Sweat began to pour down his forehead despite the cool room temperature. How do you have these?" I gave a cold, mocking smirk, staring directly into the eyes of the man I used to call my husband. "Did you think I was just some clueless housewife? I am the CEO of my firm. You really thought you could siphon $100,000 into a private account to play the stock market and fund your mistress, and I wouldn't notice? I stayed quiet for 3 months, not because I was stupid, but because I was waiting for you to fully reveal your true colors." Vincent dropped the iPad onto the couch, his knees buckling. He knew perfectly well that infidelity would only result in a divorce decree, but embezzling corporate funds from a company I controlled was enough to send him to federal prison. He immediately started his familiar routine of groveling. He lunged forward, falling to his knees at my feet, reaching out to grab my hand, but Hannah slapped his hands away. "Olivia, I was wrong. I made a mistake. It was my mom. She told me to take the money and invest it to buy a house for Hunter so he wouldn't have to stay with us. I just wanted to help the family. And Lauren, she threw herself at me when I was drunk. I swear I have no feelings for her." Hearing those pathetic excuses made me despise him even more. Even now, he was using his elderly mother as a human shield, blaming his circumstances and the other woman. Save your breath. You listened to your mother's schemes to steal your wife's house. You embezzled company money to fund a mistress while your wife was heavily pregnant. You let your brother's family trash our home, destroy our belongings, and contaminate your newborn daughter's living space. Are you even a man? Vincent stared at the floor, crying, tears and snot running down his face. "I know I messed up. Please forgive me this one time. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't go to the cops about the money. I'll get a job and pay it back slowly. We have a daughter, Olivia. Don't let her grow up without a father." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Again with the child. Just hours ago, He had abandoned his daughter with a babysitter so he could go hide in a coffee shop. Now he was using her to beg for pity. My daughter needs a decent, respectable father as a role model, not a cowardly, greedy, lying thief. You don't deserve to be her father. Attorney Nathan finally spoke up, his voice low but commanding. Mr. Vincent, the evidence is insurmountable. My client is offering you two options. Option 1. We take this to court with full evidence of your marital misconduct and your felony embezzlement. Option 2. You sign an uncontested divorce agreement, walk away with nothing, and sign a legally binding promissory note to repay the $100,000 to the company within 6 months. If you choose option 2, Miss Olivia will show leniency and not press criminal charges for the embezzlement. Vincent looked up at Nathan, then at me. His eyes were filled with utter despair. He understood he had lost everything. This luxury penthouse, his family, and his reputation all gone up in smoke. The air in the room felt thick. Vincent sat slumped on the floor, holding his head, his shoulders shaking. He was weighing his options. If he fought it in court, given the ironclad prenuptial agreement and the proof of his affair, he wouldn't get a dime anyway, and he'd be facing serious jail time. I sat in silence, waiting patiently. I was in no rush. Time was on my side. After about 10 grueling minutes, Vincent looked up, his voice hoarse. If I sign, are you absolutely sure you won't report the embezzlement? I am a businesswoman. I value my word. I replied sharply. You sign the papers and move out immediately. I am giving you 6 months to figure out how to wire that $100,000 back into the company account. If you miss the deadline, don't expect any mercy. Nathan pushed the divorce papers and a pen toward Vincent. The white document, with its cold, black text, sat perfectly aligned on the glass table. Vincent picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so violently he almost dropped it. He hesitated, his eyes sweeping across the apartment one last time. This high-end Manhattan penthouse used to be his point of pride among his friends, the place where he enjoyed a life of luxury without having to work for it. Now, one signature would strip it all away. What about custody and visitation? Vincent asked, making a last-ditch effort. You have visitation rights as prescribed by state law, Nathan explained. However, given your current financial and moral standing, primary physical and legal custody will absolutely go to Miss Olivia. You will be required to pay $1,500 a month in child support. Vincent gave a bitter laugh. $1,500 a month was a massive problem for him now that he was about to be unemployed and saddled with massive debt. But he had no other choice. He pressed the pen down, scribbling his signature on the line for the husband. His handwriting was shaky and messy, displaying his absolute helplessness. Once signed, he stood up, swaying like a drunk. He looked at me one last time, his eyes devoid of begging, replaced by a hidden resentment. You are cruel, Olivia, cutting ties like this. You won't be happy either. I stood up and looked him dead in the eye, my gaze unnaturally calm. My cruelty today is exactly what your family's greed and betrayal taught me. Get out. I've already had the staff pack your personal belongings into 2 suitcases. They're out in the hallway. Don't ever come back here. Vincent lowered his head and trudged silently out the door. Hannah quickly followed, slamming the door shut right behind him. The deadbolt clicked loudly, marking the definitive end to a turbulent 3-year marriage. I let out a breath, my body going limp, and sank into the couch. It was over. I had excised the tumor from my life. Even though it hurt, it was the pain of healing. Nathan gathered the paperwork and carefully placed it in his briefcase. Rest easy, Miss Olivia. I will file these with the court first thing tomorrow morning. With an uncontested agreement, the process will be very fast, likely finalized in just a few weeks. I nodded, thanking Nathan and Hannah. Looking out the window, the rain had completely stopped. Weak rays of late afternoon sunlight began piercing through the dark clouds, illuminating the city skyline. The sky after a storm is always clearer. I believed my life, and my daughter's life, would be too. 3 months after the day, I kicked my in-laws out of my house. News of their lives still occasionally reached my ears through old mutual acquaintances. Just as the law of karma dictates you reap what you sow, their lives had descended into a tragedy that no one could pity. After being evicted, Vincent rented a cramped, moldy studio apartment deep in New Jersey to save money. Martha and Hunter's family followed him there to crash. The tiny 300 square foot apartment had to house 7 people. I heard that every day, Loud arguments and screaming matches echoed from that room. Martha constantly berated Vincent for being a useless loser who let his wife throw him out with nothing. She mourned the loss of the luxury apartment and the opulent lifestyle she almost had, taking out all her frustration on her son. Tiffany revealed her true colors as a vicious, sharp-tongued sister-in-law. She mocked Vincent for not making any money and leeching off his brother, while simultaneously forcing him to cook and clean because he was unemployed. The two women, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, fought like cats and dogs every day over trivial things like fighting for the single bathroom or bickering over portions of food at dinner. But the biggest tragedy struck when the debt collectors tracked them down. It turned out Vincent hadn't just embezzled $100,000 from my company. He had secretly borrowed over $200,000 from dangerous underground bookies and loan sharks to invest in a crypto scam, hoping to get rich quick and buy a house for his brother. Now, the market had crashed, the money was gone, and the exorbitant interest rates had ballooned the debt to a staggering amount. One day, I received a call from a distant cousin of Vincent's. She recounted the story with a mix of breathless gossip and terror. It was awful, Olivia. Yesterday, the loan sharks showed up and tore the apartment complex apart. They splashed red paint all over Martha's door. They dragged Vincent out and beat him half to death. They broke his leg. His face was so swollen, he was unrecognizable. Martha was screaming and begging on her knees. But they didn't care. Hunter and Tiffany were so terrified they packed up in the middle of the night and fled back to Ohio with the kids, leaving the old woman and her brother for dead. Hearing the story, I didn't feel happy, nor did I feel sad. My heart was as still as a calm lake. That was the price they had to pay for their bottomless greed and stupidity. Vincent had traded a happy family, a successful wife, and a bright future for fleeting illusions and cowardly calculations. Vincent had to be rushed to the emergency room. Without money to pay the hospital bills, Martha swallowed her pride and called me. Seeing the familiar number on the screen, I hesitated for a moment before picking up. Olivia, please save Vincent. They beat him. He's dying. Have mercy. I'm begging you. Martha's voice was hoarse, trembling, and utterly desperate. I replied with a calm, flat voice. Ma'am, Vincent and I are legally divorced. We have no relationship whatsoever. I cannot intervene in his debts or his messes. You should be calling Hunter, his actual flesh and blood brother, for help. That would be the proper thing to do. With that, I hung up and blocked the number. I wasn't being cruel. I was simply protecting myself and my daughter from unnecessary trouble. I had helped them far too much in the past, and misplaced generosity is the poison that kills gratitude. Now, they had to learn to stand on their own 2 feet and take responsibility for their own actions. Time flew by. A year had passed since the storm tore through my life. New York City remained bustling and chaotic, but the lives of my daughter and me had turned a new page, one brighter and more peaceful than I could have ever imagined. My design firm, having excised the financial parasite that was Vincent, grew exponentially. I recruited a team of passionate and talented designers. Major contracts rolled in, and revenue doubled compared to the previous year. I became a model for successful female entrepreneurs, interviewed by several prestigious magazines. But my greatest joy wasn't money or fame. It was Lily, my sweet little girl. She was growing up so fast, chubby, fair-skinned, and always smiling. Her big, dark eyes looked exactly like mine. Every evening, when I came home from work and heard her call out, "Mama," every ounce of exhaustion vanished. I hired a professional nanny, a kind woman from the Midwest who loved children dearly. My massive apartment was now constantly filled with laughter and the smell of delicious, wholesome meals. I completely redecorated the penthouse, replacing the dark, moody tones of the past with bright, warm colors. Every trace of my painful past had been thoroughly erased. On weekends, I usually drove Lily to upstate New York to visit my parents. Seeing their daughter overcome such a massive storm to become even more beautiful and resilient made them incredibly happy. My mother would often say, "You see, a woman doesn't die just because she doesn't have a husband, as long as she has her career and her child. Since you dropped that dead weight, you look 10 years younger." I smiled, holding my mother's hand. It's true. After the rain, the sun comes out. The collapse of my marriage had once caused me agonizing pain, making me think I could never recover. But it was in that very crucible that I discovered my own hidden strength. I learned to love myself, to value what was truly important, and to cut toxicity out of my life. I also started taking better care of myself. I took up yoga, took floral arrangement classes, and occasionally treated myself to international vacations. I realized that when a woman knows how to love herself, the whole world will love her back. Once, Vincent secretly came to Lily's preschool to watch her from afar. I accidentally spotted him. He looked so much older, his hair graying, his posture hunched and worn. He was riding a beat-up old moped, watching Lily being led out by her teacher with eyes full of desperate longing and ultimate regret. But he didn't dare approach. He just stood watching from a distance before quietly driving away. I watched him go, feeling no resentment, only a mild sense of pity for a ruined life. At a corporate gala for international clients, I met Michael. He was the lead architect for a massive real estate development firm, a refined, elegant man with a warm smile and deep, intelligent eyes. My first impression of Michael was his thoughtfulness. When he saw me struggling with a splash of red wine on my dress, he discreetly handed me his pocket square without making me feel embarrassed in front of the crowd. We started talking about work, which naturally flowed into our hobbies and perspectives on life. I was surprised to find myself laughing and chatting so freely with a stranger, something I had walled off for a long time. Michael knew I was a single mother and had gone through a messy divorce, but he wasn't hesitant or judgmental. On the contrary, he treated me with a special kind of respect. He told me, "A woman who has walked through a hurricane and still maintains such a radiant smile must have an incredibly beautiful and brave heart." Our relationship developed naturally and gently, like breathing. Michael didn't make grandiose promises. He proved himself through actions. He cared for me in the smallest of ways. If I was working late at the office, he would always text to remind me to eat or have hot soup delivered to my desk. The most important thing was how Michael treated Lily. He never tried to buy her affection with expensive gifts. Instead, he gave her his time. He would patiently sit on the floor, building blocks with her, or read her bedtime stories. Lily, having lacked a father's love since birth, quickly grew attached to Uncle Michael. Seeing the two of them laughing together on the grass in Central Park made my heart flutter with a happiness I thought had died long ago. One romantic evening by the Hudson River, Michael held my hand, his voice deep and warm. "Olivia, I wouldn't dare promise to give you the most luxurious, wealthy life in the world, because you are already the queen of your own empire. But I promise to be the strongest shoulder for you to lean on when you're tired, and the best father to Lily. Will you give me the chance to take care of you both?" I looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity and unwavering dedication. I didn't answer right away. I just nodded slightly and squeezed his hand tightly. Tears of happiness rolled down my cheeks. I knew I had finally found my true safe harbor. Our wedding took place in a warm, intimate ceremony later that year, attended only by close family and friends. Wearing a pristine white gown, I held Lily's hand and walked toward Michael. The bright sunlight illuminated the path we were walking on. I silently thanked the storms of the past. It was because of those falls that I learned to appreciate my current happiness. It was because of those ungrateful people that I realized who truly loved me. Life is very fair. When one door closes, another one will absolutely open brighter and more radiant than before. And I, Olivia, had finally found the springtime of my life. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video to the end. If you found this story meaningful, please subscribe to the channel to support me, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below to give me the motivation to make new videos.